Good evening, everybody. It's always a difficult act to follow important event of signing of the MOUs. And many of you may be thinking as entrepreneurs, why are you interested in the world? Because you are making money in Hyderabad, Telangana. So I want to make 3 big points today as part of my engagement with you. 1, why is the world behaving in the way it is? 2, what does that mean for all of us Indians? And 3, what is the takeaway for all of you young entrepreneurs from the situation that we face here today? So if you look at this, this is a graph of uncertainty. And it's been mapped from 1990 till today. And if you look at the end, uncertainty is the highest today that it has ever been in our lifetimes. From 1990, because the Cold War was there, till now, suddenly it's peaked, it's almost double. So the world is behaving in a way that we are not used to. So let's try and see why is this happening, what are the impacts of this uncertainty. So you all know that there's been wars, there are other issues in Ukraine, in Gaza, etc. But I want you to look at this statistic. This is a list of the number of sanctions that the world has imposed on Russia. These sanctions some are before 22 February 2022 and some are later. But if you look, since 22nd February 2022, more than 23,000 sanctions have been imposed on one country. And then it follows for other countries. This has never happened ever in the history of the world that one country is being sanctioned for things it has done. So we just need to keep in mind that a country which was part of G20, which was one of the world's largest economies, is being sanctioned in this way. Look at this. This shows how governments are taking actions that have impact outside their borders. Sometimes good actions, sometimes not so good actions. But if you look at it, there are 2,816 actions which are basically actions which discriminate against other countries. The liberalization actions are about 972. So about 2,000 actions have been taken during the last year or so, which are discriminatory in nature. So obviously there is a change that has happened from the time when I was a student perhaps. Look at this. What is happening is everybody is using every weapon they have to make it into a leverage item. So this is weaponizing of the global value chain of semiconductors. So you can see which country is having more. It's the US. So in terms of overall value chain, it has 38%, China has 9%, etc. But this is not, I'm just giving you an example, but if you look again, this is the share of the global value chain of various minerals, mining and refining. So if you see copper, lithium, cobalt, graphite, rare earths, you can see that China is the dominant power in raw materials. And it is using this for its security purposes. So the US is using technology, China is using raw materials. And look at this situation in about 25 years, how it has changed. In 25 years ago, the blue part of the pie diagram, which is Western countries, used to be the most important in global production. If you now see, that number has reduced, and the gray part, which is China and its allies, have increased. And this is all happening in front of our eyes, although we are not able to understand why this is happening. So what does this mean? All of us will start balancing. because we don't know the changes. So whenever there is a risk and you are not certain, you will hedge, you will balance, you will do all sorts of yoga and say, yes, you are nice, everybody is nice. So that's why what is happening in the world is impacting everybody, because everybody doesn't know what to do. So why is this happening? There are two theories. One theory is called the Thucydides trap. It says that when there are two big powers, and one is a dominant power and another is an emerging power, what happens is it will perhaps lead to war, a war of great magnitude. And this is a theory given by an American professor called Graham Allison. And he has analyzed several such situations, and he says that out of 16 situations he analyzed, 12 led to war, 4 didn't lead to war. And therefore, he sees the similar situation arising now between the dominant power, which is the US, and the rising power, which is China. And he says that is why all this is happening, because of the uncertainty. There's another theory called the Kindleberger trap, which basically says that when a big power gives up its authority and feels that I don't need to help anybody else, I don't need to provide global public goods, this is what happens. So these are the two theories. We don't know which is clear, but the point is very simple, that all these uncertainties, there is a rationale behind it, and that's the two big theories that are going around in the world today. Now you may say, all this is fine, why does this matter to me in India? Because, sir, you are talking about the world, etc., why does it matter to us in India? And that's a valid question to ask, why these things matter to India. So look at this. When I left Hyderabad in around 1980s, India's economic linkages with the world were about 15%. So it didn't matter to us what was happening somewhere in UK or USA, etc. But today, it's about 45 to 50%, which means 50% of our GDP is linked with something from outside. Therefore, India may matter to the world, but the world matters to India, because somewhere something happens, it impacts your business. So don't think that when you're doing business in Hyderabad, what happens in Ukraine doesn't matter to me. What happens in Gaza doesn't matter to me. What happens in Russia doesn't matter, because many of your ingredients are linked with the outside world. Then you say, all right, but why does it matter to Indians? It matters because we are trying to become a developed country by 2047. And developed country means all these things. Life expectancy should increase, literacy rate should increase, employment should be full, etc., etc. These are all well known of what we want to be in 2047, which is about 22 years from now. But what does it mean? It means our GDP has to grow 9x. Our per capita income has to grow by 8x. We are now about a $4 trillion economy. We have to become, by 2047, a 30 trillion economy. So you can see how much effort is needed. And if you think that I can do it myself, the world can go to hell, it's not possible to do these sort of jumps, because these are quantum jumps from one step to another. And this just shows you how much time, if you go like we are going today, at 6% growth, you will reach a developed economy in 42 years, which means 2066. If you go exponentially, you may reach in 22 years. But for that, you have to work with the world, you have to engage, you have to focus on your economic development. Otherwise, it may take you 42 years. Many of you may not be around for that 42 years to gain the benefits of a developed economy. Then you may say, but sir, it's true. Look at our growth. So don't think it's impossible. We are the only country in the world which doesn't have a negative growth rate except during the COVID. In the COVID, everybody had all over the world. But in Asia, we are the only country over a 45 years period, there has not been a zero growth rate. Other countries have recessions, booms, busts, etc. We are the only country. So please have confidence that as a country you have faced many difficulties, but you have been able to push forward. Why does the world matter to you? Look at this. You have got 1 trillion equivalent of FDIs into India cumulatively over the last 25, 30, 40 years. 1 trillion. It's 1/4 of your economy today. So the world is looking at you and saying, yes, there are chances there, let's invest, that's why you're getting FDI. Look at your remittances. You get about 140 billion of remittances every year. All your friends, relatives, etc. going out. And it's increased from 2000, it used to be 12 billion. It is now 130 billion. So obviously, you can see how quickly we have grown in 25 years. So another 22 years, we'll be much further up the chain. Finally, all of you are from Hyderabad. Your IT earnings. In 2014, which is 10 years ago, 2014-15, your IT earnings, exports were 100 billion and total IT was 118. Today, exports are 224 billion and your total IT is 283 billion. So what does it show? That you will be growing, and in 5 years, the goal is 400 billion. For all this, you need the world. You may be very good entrepreneurs, you may be very good, the government of India may do everything else to your satisfaction, but the world is important because look at that. Only 18 billion of your IT products are having a market in India 10 years ago. Now about maybe 60 billion, 220 billion are going out. So you need the market of the world, although you may have a big market yourself. What does that all that mean? You say, sir, I understood all this. Tell me what is it take away for me? And I need to tell you, I'll just give you quickly what are the big takeaways. You know, all you entrepreneurs, you think that if you get resources, if you get labor, if you get capital, if you can get technology, it will work. This was the old thinking. Today, there is a new factor called geopolitics. If you don't understand the world, all the other things will not work for you because things may be dramatically wrong because you made a decision without taking account of the world. So please remember that you may be the smartest economist, you may be the smartest businessman, you may get the money, you may have the labor, you may have the best technology. You don't account for geopolitics, things may not work out. So even if you're a small-time entrepreneur, remember, today, if you look at the exporters from Tirupur who were selling textiles to the USA, suddenly they don't have any place to go. If you look at shrimp farmers in Andhra, they cannot sell their shrimps to USA. So it is important for you to look at the world. Don't think, no, I'm in a good place, I'm in a big country, I have a large population, and things will work out, number one. Number two is, interdependence always creates uncertainty. And let me give you an example. I used to be the ambassador to the UN some years ago. And there was a very rich businessman who came to New York once. And after the meeting, they said, sir, he wants to meet you. I said, oh, he's a very famous businessman. Why he wants to meet me? They said, no, he just wants to meet you. I said, fine. And then after some time, they phoned and said, no, he's busy. He doesn't want to meet you, which is also fine. It can happen to any of us that you plan for something, it doesn't work. And the businessman left. After 10 days, I got a call early in the morning, New York Times, saying, sir, so-and-so wants to talk to you. I said, but he was here in New York some days ago and I think he's gone back. Yes, he's gone back to India. He wants to talk to you urgently. So I said, what's the problem? So I talked to him. He said, Ambassador, I'm very sorry. I said, why, what's the problem? He said, you know, I'm in the petroleum business. I said, yes, I am aware you're in this business. So he says, I hired a ship from Abu Dhabi, right? And I buy oil from one country, sell to another country, I refine everything, and this is, I said, yeah, we are all knowledgeable about that. He said, we made a mistake. So I said, well, you know, I don't deal with Abu Dhabi, I deal with UN. He said, yes, we made a mistake with the UN. I said, what happened? He said, we got this ship and we were told that this is the approval of the foreign minister of Libya to take the ship there and lift oil from Benghazi and take it to another place, somewhere Malta, and then from there sell it or buy it or whatever else. I said, yeah, so what's the problem? He said, sir, we were told now we are sanctioned. I said, oh, why were you sanctioned? Sir, we didn't know that the government in Benghazi is not the true government. Because it's a war-torn country. We didn't know. They said foreign minister of Libya has written a letter. And we thought it is fine. And so my point is, understanding regulations, understanding global regulations is very important. You may be the biggest businessman in India. You don't get it right, you are in trouble. Finally, of course, we told him to send the ship back from Benghazi to Tripoli. They offloaded the oil, and then the sanctions were lifted. But my point is that, what's the bigger point? The bigger point is, have small insurance policies for yourselves. And that insurance policy means go and be in touch with people who understand these regulations, or do the next things. Because these are deciphering regulations is difficult, hire expertise for that regulations. So you may have the best engineers, the best chemists, the best physics, the best whatever else, but if you don't have people who understand the world and their regulations, you will land in trouble and you will need help. So that's my generic principle, that even if you're a small entrepreneur, develop ability to engage in areas which may have an impact on your business. And the last point I want to say is that in a digital world, the shifts are less on digital transactions than on physical goods. So whenever you are investing in the future, please look at possible digital transactions, because that is the future. Goods will run into more difficulties than services will. So I want to leave you with that thought that new areas are coming, you can tap them, but remember the 4 other things you have to follow before you venture into new areas. So if you do the 4 things right, the world is available for you to do what you want. And I wish you all success in whatever else you want to do, because there is endless opportunity for the young people. But be careful about regulations which are not in front of you, but are happening at the world level. So thank you very much for paying attention to me.